I'm Mrs. Miller, your teacher at ELA Academy. Today, we're going to analyze some of the persuasive strategies Mark Antony uses in his funeral oration in Act 3, Scene 2 of Julius Caesar. Before we start, let me recommend my favorite cinematic version of this speech, the late, great Charlton Heston in 1970. Go check it out when you get the chance. When we talk about specific communication strategies, we're delving into a field of study called rhetoric. Simply put, rhetoric is the art of communicating effectively. Within rhetoric are many specific strategies. Today, we will focus on the rhetorical appeals, which are ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos, or ethical appeal, refers to the speaker's credibility with the audience. Does the audience feel they can trust and believe the speaker? For example, a professional athlete is often used to endorse athletic shoes, or a model to endorse beauty products. Pathos, or emotional appeal, is the attempt to persuade the audience by making them feel a certain emotion. Animal shelters know that when they put pictures of sad, injured dogs on TV, people will start crying and send in donations. Logos, or logical appeal, is the attempt to persuade people with facts. You might want to pause the video for a moment to review this SOAPSTone analysis of Antony's situation. Pay close attention to the occasion. The deck is stacked against Antony. The people wholeheartedly believe that Caesar was bad and Brutus is good. In fact, one citizen says ominously, "'Twere best he speak no harm of Brutus here." So the first strategy Antony uses is to bolster his ethos with the audience. A citizen says, "We'll hear him. Noble Antony, go up." This shows that Antony has a positive reputation or good ethos with the people, so they are prepared to hear him out respectfully. Then he tells them, "For Brutus's sake, I am beholding to you." He's preserving his ethos by showing respect to Brutus because at this moment the people approve of Brutus. It wouldn't help Antony persuade the people if he attacked Brutus immediately before presenting his case. He adds, "I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him." And the evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones, so let it be with Caesar. Again, he's preserving his credibility, his ethos, by not contradicting the people's beliefs too quickly. Of course, he's lying. He'll begin praising Caesar almost immediately. "Here, under leave of Brutus and the rest, come I to speak in Caesar's funeral." This is important because he's saying his entire speech has been approved by Brutus and the others, probably not Brutus's wisest decision. And then he keeps saying things like this: "For Brutus is an honorable man. So are they all honorable men. And Brutus is an honorable man." Repeated. You will see that he'll praise Caesar, but then say Brutus is an honorable man, then praise Caesar again, and so on. This has the effect of slowly persuading the people that Brutus and the conspirators were in fact not honorable men. The honorable becomes increasingly ironic. He accomplishes this turnaround primarily through the use of pathos. For example, he starts out by saying, "When that the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff." He's talking to a crowd made up primarily of the poor. If he simply said that Caesar had compassion for the poor, that would not be pathos, but he paints a picture of Caesar behind the scenes crying his eyes out for the people's suffering. He then drops in a couple of powerful facts before continuing with the pathos. The fact that seems to strike the people most powerfully is this: "You all did see that on the Lupercal I thrice presented him a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. Was this ambition?" Just a bit later, a citizen says, "Marked ye his words? He would not take the crown. Therefore 'tis certain he was not ambitious." And then, just as Morellus did in Act 1, Scene 1, he berates the crowd for their fickleness. "You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him?" This fact reminds them how they cheered Caesar in the streets such a short time before, and makes them wonder whether they were right to change their minds so quickly. Having planted the seeds of logic in their minds, Antony returns to pathos in order to stir their emotions. After berating the crowd, he pulls back just in time to avoid making them angry. "Bear with me. My heart is in the coffin there with Caesar, and I must pause till it come back to me." This arouses their sympathy, and it's credible because they know how close Antony was to Caesar. We can see how well it works when the citizens comment, "Poor soul, his eyes are red as fire with weeping," and "There's not a nobler man in Rome than Antony." Then he uses pathos to arouse their curiosity about Caesar's will. "Let but the commons hear this testament, and they would go and kiss dead Caesar's wounds and dip their napkins in his sacred blood." And, "It is not meet you know how Caesar loved you. You are not wood, you are not stones, but men, and being men, bearing the will of Caesar, it will inflame you, it will make you mad." He continues teasing them with comments like this over the course of 110 lines, so that when he finally does tell them what was in the will, he has them begging to hear it and hanging on his every word. As he goes on, he can gauge the audience's response to see that his rhetoric is working on them. So when he says this, "I fear I wrong the honorable men whose daggers have stabbed Caesar," he knows that the entire crowd now understands that the honorable is ironic, especially when juxtaposed with the vivid imagery of the daggers stabbing Caesar. Now that the crowd is in his hand, he begins a scene of high drama. He lays the pathos on as thickly as possible. He calls on the crowd to make a ring about the corpse of Caesar and let me show you him that made the will. He wants to make sure that nobody is thinking of Caesar's death in the abstract. He wants to show them Caesar's broken body and his blood-stained mantle, and he wants them to imagine the actual stabbing. This entire speech is calculated to instill grief and outrage in the audience. "If you have tears, prepare to shed them now. Look, in this place ran Cassius's dagger through. See what a rent the envious Casca made." Envious. He's introducing possible motivations for the assassination other than concern for Rome. "Through this the well-beloved Brutus stabbed, and as he plucked his cursed steel away, mark how the blood of Caesar followed it. For Brutus, as you know, was Caesar's angel. Judge, O you gods, how dearly Caesar loved him. This was the most unkindest cut of all." Brutus used his friendship with Caesar as a key part of his ethos. That's why the conspirators wanted him so badly, because if Caesar's own close friend thought he was a danger, well, then it must be true. But Antony turns this around to make the people furious at Brutus for betraying Caesar's love and friendship. For when the noble Caesar saw him stab, ingratitude more strong than traitors' arms quite vanquished him, then burst his mighty heart, and great Caesar fell. Oh, what a fall was there, my countrymen! Then I and you and all of us fell down, whilst bloody treason flourished over us, meaning that all the people of Rome were hurt and betrayed by Caesar's death. Oh, now you weep, and I perceive you feel the dint of pity. These are gracious drops. And now he reminds them that they have only been looking at Caesar's bloody robe. Kind souls, what, weep you when you but behold our Caesar's vesture wounded? Look you here is himself marred as you see with traitors. So if they were grief-stricken at the sight of the robe, their grief ratchets up several notches by the sight of the body itself. All of this pathos is calculated, not simply to persuade the people intellectually that Brutus and the conspirators were wrong, but to engage their emotions as powerfully as possible so that they will unleash their rage upon the assassins. Now that their emotions are fully aroused, he uses logos to stoke the fires even further. He manipulates them into begging to hear Caesar's will. With pretended reluctance, he tells them, "Here is the will, and under Caesar's seal. To every Roman citizen he gives, to every several man, 75 drachmas. And, moreover, he hath left you all his walks, his private arbors and new planted orchards on this side Tiber. He hath left them you, and to your heirs forever common pleasures, to walk abroad and recreate yourselves." Imagine being told that somebody left you the equivalent of several months' salary. Even though this is a fact, it is calculated to draw their hearts even closer to Caesar. Let's get an overview of the changing public opinion during Antony's speech. At first, the people were firmly on Brutus's side, having been won over by his speech. Citizens said, "'Twere best he speak no harm of Brutus here. This Caesar was a tyrant," and "Nay, that's certain, we are blessed that Rome is rid of him." Partway through Antony's speech, we see them beginning to doubt their previous opinion, largely due to his reminder about Caesar refusing the crown. "Methinks there is much reason in his sayings. If thou consider rightly of the matter, Caesar has had great wrong." At the end, they're a seething mob ready to destroy the conspirators. "We'll burn the house of Brutus. Most noble Caesar will revenge his death. We'll burn his body in the holy place, and with the brands fire the traitors' houses." So readers, are you now convinced? Would you be ready to join this mob in hunting down Brutus and the others? Part of the reason we study rhetoric is to understand exactly how speakers get under our skin and to retain the ability to be skeptical and think for ourselves. Let's look at what Antony says about his skills as an orator. "I am no orator as Brutus is, but as you know me all, a plain, blunt man that love my friend. For I have neither wit nor words, nor worth, action nor utterance, nor the power of speech to stir men's blood." But having just analyzed how skillfully Antony has manipulated the crowd to change their opinion 180 degrees, do you believe for 1 second that he doubts his ability to stir men's blood with his speech? At the end, once the crowd has left, he says this: "Now let it work. Mischief thou art afoot. Take thou what course thou wilt." This is what he says when he is alone, so we can count on it to reveal his true thoughts. And of course, we see that he has very deliberately wound the people up to a state in which they will work great mischief on the conspirators. And lest we say it is only right that he has done so, since Brutus and the others were so very wrong, remember what Casca said when he told them about the crown incident. Yes, Caesar refused the crown 3 times, but he was clearly reluctant to do so. I encourage you to continue looking for evidence that would support and detract from each side so that you can make your own well-informed judgment on the assassination of Caesar. I hope this lesson on rhetorical appeals has been helpful to you. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. Also, check out my website for supplementary materials on each video I post. This is ELA Academy.